Love and blessings, beautiful souls. I'm Dr. Derek Sweet, and you're listening to The Sweet Spot. I know you're enjoying The Sweet Spot this week because we've had a guest like no other. We have Cam Clark with us, who has been dropping information, wisdom, all kinds of sagacity here on The Sweet Spot that we are going to use for years to come. Cam, I'm definitely going to come back to some of the insights that you've been sharing on the various days. And I'm probably going to write some of these things down and maybe even create an article out of some of the really deep insights that you've given us. And I'm looking forward to today because we're tackling a topic today on Trust Yourself Thursday that gives a lot of us trouble. Trust,
Mm.
self-trust, trust in general. Self-trust is just a part of it. Trust in general can be a huge issue. And when you think about trust, we trust so much. Sometimes people say, I don't trust is not involved in what I do. Oh, yes, it is. Oh, yes, it is. You trust those eggs in the morning that they're not poisoned. You don't. Nobody tells you that, but you're trusting that. You trust the bus driver or the pilot or the Uber driver that they're not going to drive off the bridge or something with you. You trust so many things that are axiomatic. You don't even think about them, but we're trusting. And even more than that, Cam, when that trust is broken inside of a relationship, I was telling my wife Darcel about it the other day. It's like trying to put toothpaste back in a toothpaste tube.
Mm.
She talked about it this way. She said that sometimes when trust is a problem, it's like you crumple up a piece of paper, you just ball it up in your fist, and then you try to open it back out and smooth it back out. That paper never goes back to being smooth. It bears the scars, the wounds, the distortions that come when you've been betrayed.
Mm.
So trust is one of those things we need it. The world we operate on that. When you're a baby and daddy throws you up in the air, you're trusting that daddy is going to catch you. Right? You're not old enough to make a decision, to test it out. You're trusting. So I'm interested in you telling us about your experience because I know as an athlete, athletes have to trust their bodies. They have to trust their teammates. They have to trust in their goals to make it. And when they get injured, you were injured. You were deeply injured. I remember. They have to trust the comeback, the recovery. I'm wondering if we could talk, if you're okay with it, about your injury and how trust factored into that. Would that be okay to go into that a bit?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I look at my injury, right, just to fill the audience in, so was in my second year in the NFL, ended up having a career-ending injury, a spine injury, a cervical spine injury, was told I couldn't play anymore, was drafted just the year before. So in that time of my life, I didn't have much trust, right? I mean, who I thought I was had been stripped from me. This whole ego, this whole perception, or this whole self-identity that I had as being an NFL player, as being one of the 1% of the 1%, right? All of that had it dissipated, right? So looking back now, when I look at that time in my life, all I had was trust. I had no plan. When I was told I couldn't, the first person, one of the first people I spoke with when I was told that I couldn't play anymore was you, Dr. Sweet. And at that time, I didn't know I wanted to start my own company and become one of the best at what I do in that field. I didn't know I wanted to go in and become an NFL agent and represent guys at the highest level. All I could do was trust what I did know, right? So I think when it comes to injuries, right, and we can even circle it back to, everyone's not going to have a career in an injury, but all athletes are going to be injured in some aspect, in some space. You have to trust your story and trust your journey, right? And trust and know that what is for you is for you. And in that, also not just trusting, but controlling your controllables, right? And I'm always going to revert back to that. And trust is one thing, but you trust yourself because of the decisions that you make in the dark, right? I think trust comes from the deals that we make with ourselves daily, right? I mean, we could talk about the simple, as simple as you might be eating a bag of chips, right? And you put them back in the pantry, right? I'm done, right? You tell yourself you're done, but there's a good chance you might end back at that pantry, right? So the small deals that we make with ourselves, right? When we say we wanted to do, whether it's you wanted to do 10 reps and you only did 8 if I'm an athlete, right? If I'm a lawyer and I need to redline 7 documents and that's my goal, and then I make a deal, I did 3 and I'll do the other 4 later because I want to watch this show or whatever it may be, right? I think it's the deals that we make with ourselves that reveal that ultimately when it is time to trust ourselves, that's where that trust comes from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when you were injured, just to bring this home, you said it was a cervical injury, correct?
Yes.
And so you were essentially paralyzed, unable
Yes.
to move.
Yes. The diagnosis is neuropraxia, transient
Mhm.
paraplegia for people
Mhm.
listening.
Okay. And you, in that moment, you were still conscious. You were aware that your body could not move or wasn't moving the way it should. Help me and the listeners understand, if it's okay, what that was like and where did trust come in.
I think in that moment, just to be transparent, I wish I had the philosophical answer. I think I was hoping more than I was trusting.
Mm-hmm.
But in that moment, I did have trust because I remember my conversations with God in the ambulance. I remember, I still, in that moment, I still trusted him. In that moment, nobody was there. My mom, dad, support, nobody was there. It was just me. And in that moment, but I was able to, I remember just praying. And I remember saying that there's no way. I trusted in the fact that I was telling myself, you're not going out like this. You're not going out like this. You're not going out like this. Right. So at the end of the day, I trusted that there was more for me after this injury, that I was going to recover, that this wasn't going to be, I wasn't going to be a paraplegic the rest of my life at the age of 23, 24 years old, right? That wasn't going to be my destiny, right? So I think that's where the trust came in that moment. And then also I think is as well as I had to let go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let go. So trust. So, okay. So there are several things that you're talking about. You said you hoped, you trusted, and you let go.
Yes.
I think there's a message there for all of us. There's a message there for all of us. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hope, trust, and let go. So, wow. That's just, I mean, I'm just allowing that to sit. I want that to land.
It's profound when you frame it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's also profound that you're sitting here in front of me and that you're walking and talking and that you were blessed to have the miracle of full return of all your limbs. Not everybody is so lucky, not everybody is so blessed. And the fact that you could speak about it, and you also had a conversation with God. You said, I remember when I spoke with God. Whatever your higher power is, if you're listening, whatever gives you meaning, whatever gives you hope, whatever your deeper connection is, there comes a time when you're going to have to trust in that more than anything else.
Yes.
We talk
Yes.
about we talk about alignment here on the sweet spot a lot, about being aligned. Trust is also involved in alignment, finding the right alignment, what we're aligning with, especially in moments like that.
And just to piggyback off of that, I love that because the reason that I was praying, the reason I just didn't accept it as fate is because I know, right? Not knew, I know that there are plans that God has for me, not just in my life, but to impact and affect others in a positive way, right? To help others achieve their dreams, their goals through their hard work and their sacrifices, right? Me being paralyzed the rest of my life was not in alignment with what the truth is that I've already accepted is the goal and the message and the reason for my life. I knew there was no way that God was going to allow that to be that's the Cameron Clark story because it's not in alignment. It's not in alignment with who I am and what not the injury per se, but the more so the plan that God has to use me to impact others. That wasn't in alignment because before I played football, before I got good at football, before I was ever drafted, my mother was an educator, right? That was, and if I wasn't doing what I was doing, I think I'd be a teacher. I'd be teaching in some way. That action it wasn't in alignment, right? So I love that you said that.
Understood. Understood. You had a deeper purpose. You had a deeper calling, and you sensed it. You felt it, and it galvanized you. It pushed you forward, and you knew. The ancient wisdom talks about this. Jeremiah 29, I believe. 11. I'm not sure if it's 11 or 13, but there are a lot of Christians listening. They're going to correct me later. Trust me. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. For I know the plans I have for you to bring you to an expected end, not to harm you. That's what you're living and walking. And it's great that you are not ashamed or reticent to speak about the fact that you connected to your higher source, when you face that. And I'll tell you, I read an author a long time ago. I don't know who it is, but he said that if you take people up to a mountain and you throw them off, kind of a macabre thing, the first thing they're going to say is they're going to call for God. They're going to find that it's almost instinctive in man to look for something divine, look for something bigger when a really big crisis hits. And I just wanted to say that out loud. It might help somebody.
Yes.
Oh goodness! Well, look, I have to say that I'm deeply, deeply, deeply impressed with how you trusted and got past that, and that now you're using your testimony, your story here to bless others, and and really that you don't forget it, and that you actually use it to make yourself an instrument, because you know that you had a bigger calling. You know that you had something larger to do. Now, I feel like I want to say this out loud too, that sometimes people are left in a paralyzed state. Sometimes they're left with deficits that are physical, and they still minister, and their life is equally a testimony. And that's the mystery of God, in my view, that they're able to still promote and perpetuate the power of God as we see them ministering and blessing in the middle of their own affliction. Maybe they didn't have the blessing that you did, but they nonetheless were not stopped. They still, in the middle of the affliction, in the middle of the setback, the disappointment, they found a way. And I feel like that makes them even more powerful in some ways. So if you're out there and you're listening and you are facing something and you didn't get this blessing, don't, don't, don't despair. You are valuable. You are accounted for. You are loved, and you are worthy. And as long as you have breath and you're connected, you can make a difference. And we have to trust that. We have to trust that. Sometimes we're not given the blessing. Sometimes we're not given the outcome. But To get back to what Cam Clark has been teaching us this week, y'all, control the controllables. You can still trust God. The ancient wisdom says, yet though I'm slave, yet though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I trust. I have no fear. That's power. Now I don't know
Yes.
how, yeah, I don't know how we got here. Okay. But I think your testimony, your sharing about your injury and how you overcame it sort of put me in that sort of mode to talk through how we trust after we've faced major disappointment.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, and then
And we must do our part. We must do our part. But I know we keep it on the religious path here, but my grandmother used to always listen to a gospel song that says, "The battle's not yours, it's the Lord's."
mm,
And in trusting ourselves and doing what we do or achieving, aspiring, whatever it is, control your controllables, as Dr. Sweet has said, and understand what's out of your hands. In
mm,
that moment, that wasn't my battle. The
mm,
only thing, there was nothing I could do. There wasn't a workout I could have done to prepare for it. There wasn't anything I could say, I could suggest in that moment. The battle wasn't mine, so I had to come to peace. I had to make peace while also hoping, right? So
mm.
aspiring and not, yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I know we've been beating the ancient wisdom down here quite a bit, but I feel as if that's where you go when things are really bad or things are really challenging or you're facing something that's overwhelming. You go to what gives you meaning. You go to what gives you the sense of power. And maybe for some listeners out there, it's the teachings of Buddha. Maybe it's Muhammad and maybe it's Christ, whatever it is. For us, it's the ancient wisdom of the Christian walk. One of the things that I remember is this idea of trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding. Sometimes self trust can be distorted, and you do have to have a divine metric, something that's a little higher that you can believe in, because what you're looking around you, it doesn't make sense in the natural. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't look like it. Like somebody looking at you at different points in your journey. If you, the wrong person in front of the wrong person in front of you might have written you off.
Yes.
But you trusted not only in your own understanding, but in something higher, something bigger. You knew that you knew that you knew that you had a bigger journey, like a bigger purpose. And I believe that that's what the idea of faith is all about.
And you have to know that in despair and the depths of whatever you're going through, the lowest of the lows, whether it's whatever it is, whether it's loss, whether it's death, whether it's transitions, you have to always be able to aspire, right? If you can't hope for something better, then you're as good as dead,
Mm.
right? So maintaining the ability to aspire, right? So what, it didn't go my way. So what, this whole, maybe this relationship didn't turn out the way I thought it would. Maybe this business partnership, this mentorship, whatever it may have been, it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to turn out, right? But there, you can never let go of your hope, and you owe it to yourself, right? Not to anyone else, but to yourself.
100% to yourself. As you say that, I'm reminded in the ancient wisdom that David, the warrior, had to encourage himself in the caves sometimes. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself. Sometimes you have to put on your music. Sometimes you have to dance like nobody, like nobody's watching. Sometimes you got to go for the walk. Sometimes it's about doing some breathing, praying, whatever it is that you pour back into yourself, because you've got to encourage yourself when nothing is around externally to encourage you. That's when you trust yourself. You're not just flesh and blood, you're also spirit and soul.
Mm.
And that's the key. Have a deeper awareness and understanding. And if we don't stop here, brother, we'll be having this conversation. You know how you and I can just go. All right. We'll be having this conversation on trust for quite some time. I hope that this helped someone today process trust, to see that It's not neat. It's not perfect, but something is possible when we tune in. We've been listening to The Sweet Spot. It is Trust Yourself Thursday. We've been speaking with Can Clark. We'll be joining you again tomorrow, beautiful souls, for nothing less than Finish Strong Friday. Can Clark, is there anything you'd like to say?
I appreciate you all. Hope you all had some nuggets that you could take from today and look forward to seeing you all on Friday.